Today, I would like to talk about the world's last remaining superpower. Now, when I say that, I think that most people think that I'm talking about the United States because after the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, that is what a lot of the media intelligentsia said is we now live in a unipolar world or a world where there is a single superpower. And that superpower is the United States. And during the quote unquote Cold War, the superpowers, there were two, the Soviet Union and the United States. So the Soviet Union goes away and then the United States is left standing. It's the sole superpower. Now, there is some truth to that, but it's actually a little bit more complicated. And I'm going to tell you who I believe we still live in that world of a sole superpower, but it's not exactly who you think it is. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. My name's Joe Palmetto. This is Libertarian Front, where I talk about libertarianism and politics in general. I am a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, an undergraduate in political science, with a focus on Asian studies and also global politics. Additionally, I have a law degree from Duquesne Law, and I like to talk politics. And we live in very interesting times, especially when it comes to international politics. So if you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. This isn't exactly libertarian politics, but I'm going to tie it into that a little bit. Excuse me. I had a real bad itch back there. I'm going to tie it into there a little bit. Okay. So, like I said earlier, I do believe that we live in a single superpower world. And many people may say, well, it's the United States. The United States after the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. They could pick on everybody, push everybody around, etc., etc. I don't think that's necessarily true, or at least the United States alone doesn't have that kind of power. And some people may say, well, now in 2024, we have two superpowers. We have the United States and China. And China is extremely powerful. It's an extremely powerful country. And, maybe in different times it would be classified as a superpower, but I still don't think that it's quite in that category. Again, at least not alone. And that is where I gave you my clue, right? And perhaps the map that we're looking at here gives you a clue also. The true lone superpower, both after the fall of the Berlin Wall, perhaps even before the fall of the Berlin Wall, considering the strength of the Warsaw Pact versus what I'm talking about, I don't know that they quite held up, but we'll say it was bipolar. It was two superpowers. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, there has been a superpower, but in the United States is part of that superpower, but it's not the United States alone. So the next biggest entity that I would call world superpower is the world's only superpower is NATO, North American Treaty Organization. Now, in this map, the dark blue are the NATO members. We look over here. I think you guys can see my cursor, but if you look at North America, that's a lot of territory and a lot of people. You have the United States of America and Canada, both members of NATO. And then you have most of Europe. Absent, what are we looking at? Ireland, Austria, Hungary, Serbia, maybe Albania, Moldova, the Ukraine, Belarus, though I would argue Belarus is part of Russia. It's not its own country anymore. It's not. So the Turkey, all these countries in North America and Europe have an alliance. And, they all often talk about, I believe there's a certain article that is the Mutual Defense Pact of NATO, Article 4. Okay. And Article 4 essentially says if one NATO member is attacked, then another NATO member must defend it. Now, or all other NATO members must defend it. Now, I'm not, a master of this treaty by any means, okay? But I want to talk about it generally. So you have North American Treaty Organization, all these countries. Most of these countries, well, minus the ones in Eastern Europe, were aligned prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall. That's why I say this superpower existed prior and had more power than the United States, than the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact. However, I think it's foolish. To think that the countries that would be defended by NATO are only the countries in NATO. Let me say that again. It is foolish to think that the NATO alliance would only defend countries within NATO. There are, in my opinion, unspoken but clear members of NATO that aren't there in blue. And let's talk about perhaps the most glaring one, and I don't think anybody would disagree with me, but and there's, better set, there's two of them. It's down here on the far right, it's Australia and New Zealand. Does anybody here think that if Australia and New Zealand were attacked by another country with an intent to conquer, that the United States and these countries in blue wouldn't come to its aid? I can't imagine a world where these countries in blue, maybe not all of them, but most of them, and the ones that matter will, the ones that really matter would come to the aid of Australia. And Australia comes to the aid of these countries. World War II, I don't know too much. I don't know enough about World War I. I do believe Australia sent troops in World War I to fight with the Allies. In World War II, they sent troops to fight with the Allies. And in the Iraq War in Afghanistan, which was a war of aggression by the United States, some would argue, Australia came to the aid of the United States. And so Australia and New Zealand, I believe, are unspoken but clear members of the NATO alliance. But it doesn't end there. It really doesn't end there. Let's move further up to these green countries. We have here Japan and South Korea. And you can almost throw Taiwan in there, although I wouldn't say quite Taiwan, because I don't know how much the Europeans would defend to Taiwan, but I think that they would participate to some degree, especially if the United States is going in to defend Taiwan in a war of aggression with China. So then you have Japan and South Korea. I would argue, now they're marked as global partners here in green. I would argue that Japan and South Korea are also members of NATO for all practical purposes. Now, these countries, it's very interesting, and Elon Musk made a recent tweet about this, about how the Allied powers treated the world after winning World War II. But this setup, this web of alliances with the North America, Western Europe, and much of Eastern Europe, plus these Pacific Rim countries, have existed essentially since World War II. Japan was rebuilt by much in part by the United States post World War II, and South Korea was defended in the Korean War and the war against communism by the United States and its allies. They are both democratic, free market countries. And the United States has multiple military bases in both countries, and a lot of guns pointing right at North Korea. So, I believe that it's unwritten, but NATO is essentially all those countries in blue and at least those four other countries that I named that are green. And you might be able to throw a couple other countries in there as well. The Philippines is interesting. The United States has a long history with the Philippines of alliances in a way, and Mexico. Now, I don't. We all know about the Monroe Doctrine and the United States sphere of influence over South America, right? Or maybe you don't. Go ahead and Google it. But the United States' relationship and even much of Europe's with South America is not as rosy as it perhaps should be or we would want it to be. And hopefully we can get there. But I would throw Mexico. I mean, I'd throw Mexico into that mix too, to a large degree. Mexicans generally wouldn't be called upon to really defend necessarily these other countries, considering their relative strength compared to Mexico's. But no, the United States would not tolerate, and I believe that its allies as well would not tolerate an invasion of Mexico by foreign powers. Now, what do all these countries have in common? Well, there's, it's obvious when it comes to the geography, it's a legacy of World War II, and the similar cultures of Western Europe and North America. But the other similar webs of World War II, North America, is former British Commonwealth or British Commonwealth countries. And that's when you get Australia and New Zealand and perhaps some other small countries. And then of course Japan and Korea. But you have to, you can almost think of it as the English speaking world plus its allies. It's another way to sort of think of it. They're all maybe in a way an ancestor of the former British Empire. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But this alliance of countries, this alliance of North America, Western Europe, much of Eastern Europe, and these Pacific Rim nations are, when acting together, are overwhelmingly more powerful than any other allied countries. Now, Russia and China are attempting to form some sort of alliance, maybe with some other countries as well, North Korea, Iran. Still, in terms of economic might, the countries that I named are still much more powerful than those four countries combined. However, it does, those countries, this new sort of Russo-Sino alliance it would be very, very powerful and very formidable. But, the United States, Germany, Japan, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, Poland. I mean, we're talking multiple top 10 economies. South Korea, and Russia's basically in the high in the comedies, just high in economic power just based on its size. Whereas China is a highly industrial country. But I think it's good to know this, because you have to think about the world. Global politics makes more sense if you think about the world in this way. If you understand the relationship with the United States and Japan, United States and South Korea, Western Europe and Japan, Western Europe and Australia. Because, when you give the middle finger to NATO and the United States and or Western Europe, you're usually also giving the middle finger to all of these other countries who have vast wealth, and power, real power when it comes to military power, but also economic power and global influence. Now, there are many other countries that are becoming huge players, or already are. India, of course, China, Russia. Brazil is very interesting. Turkey is a very, very powerful country. Vietnam. There's a lot of economies that are coming up. Nigeria is an interesting country. to be big players in global politics. But if you understand the Western Alliance, I'll call this the Western Alliance, you have a better understanding of global politics. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in to Libertarian Front. My name is Joe Palmetto. I'm going to talk more about global politics, so this is just a taste. But understanding this alliance is crucial to understanding what goes on in and around the world, right? So thank you everybody for tuning in. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It's a great way, free way to support the show. We talk about politics, libertarianism, etc. All right, everybody, have a great day.